Fact of the matter is he? Is that guy at the bar? All right, welcome back to Fact of the Matter. I'm your host Goose, and it has been a while. I've been on vacation, and some changes have happened behind the scenes. But Taco and I will be back soon. But in the meantime, let's talk about UFC 303. Now, that was a pretty bad pay-per-view in my opinion. I saw some people were saying it was pretty good, but oh my god, the especially the main card was actually dreadful. There was only like, I don't know, a couple good fights, kind of. But let's start from the beginning, or like at the top, and let's just talk about the most exciting fight of the night, most likely. Poatan Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka, the Czech samurai. Now, what really happened? A murder, basically. in few words, we just witnessed a murder. That was pretty depressing to watch. Jiri Prochazka. I was, if any of you recall, I was really excited for the rematch as soon as the fight ended, the first one, because I just wanted to see a trilogy. I wanted more of that stare down, of that super exciting, like extremely high stakes the fight that they had that first time, because it was very competitive, like pretty close. Jiri had Alex in trouble at one point, and then I did not have a problem with this stoppage, but I knew like technically could have gone longer maybe. So I was just excited to see them fight again. But I did do a bit of homework for an unreleased podcast for the main and co-main. Again, I've been on vacation, but and I basically knew that Alex Pereira probably had Jiri's number by now, and that's because of a few moments in the first fight where Alex Pereira was really starting to time some of Jiri's movements, and actually on the channel we have it. I talk a little bit about this. I had predicted like either a head kick or a knee up the middle, a switch knee, as Alex has gotten one of those knockouts in the past. But instead, what he did was very interesting. He was just timing the like Jiri's head movement that he likes to duck for like feinting takedowns and masking his shots. He just started to time those with body jabs to the body, and like they're very stiff. They're very good shots from Alex. He implements that a lot in his game, but he threw the body jab to time his chin basically, and that stung Jiri a couple times and just didn't allow him to get going. So and of course eventually, like we've all seen the clips by now of Alex and his team talking about they saw how Jiri was checking the trying to check the kicks and just hands too low. And in my opinion, Jiri had the right idea, but just not the right execution, because in the first fight, I believe this is where Jiri got it from, but there were a couple times where he was just eating Alex's leg kicks, and he came very close to actually tagging Alex with like big overhand rights or a right cross, I believe. I do not remember, but so I think what he wanted to do this fight was just kind of like do a better job at checking and also countering the leg kick like in the same moment. But of course, Alex saw it behind the scenes. He noticed there were a few technical mistakes defensively and capitalized. And the rest is history. Very depressing. Jiri is kind of like Tony Ferguson, but at light heavyweight. And everyone loves Tony. Everyone loves Jiri. And he looked really disheartened. So he's back to training now, but I hope he does all right. But yeah, great, good fight. Very quick night in the office for Alex. But what's next for Alex now? I've seen a lot of people try to comment about Alex Pereira against John Jones. Just let him do it, Danny. And I do not agree. I definitely think that is not the move. Not in the slightest. In my opinion, it doesn't make any sense to do that fight because Jones already has a number one contender that he's been ducking for months, and it would make no sense to give Alex Pereira the opportunity before Tomas Pinal, especially when Pereira has, well, Ankalaev technically, but also maybe a rematch with Jan. Apparently, Alex Pereira's manager said Jan Blachowicz was next for the title, so I really wouldn't mind watching that rematch, but I think Jan will be a bit too old by then. So either way, a lot of people are asking for Pereira to get submitted in the first round by John Jones because spoiler alert, that's exactly what will happen if they fight. I get that Alex Pereira is like a once in a lifetime talent. He's extremely good. He's been improving significantly. I mean, Jiri could not take him down anymore. His defense against the ground and pound we saw has also improved a lot. So he's not as easy as he was once to take advantage of in the ground. But we're talking about John Jones, 1, and 2, heavyweight John Jones. So I think with the reach advantage, with the size advantage, with the weight advantage, everything goes into John Jones' favor, especially as a grappler. And like, weight bullying is like a pretty big deal as it is, but with grapplers specifically being the weight bullies, I think the benefits are exponential. So I don't know why people want to watch that fight. It makes no sense. It will not be a happy ending. But I guess it's in the making, I suppose. Other than that, there's Tom Aspinall and Ankalaev. Tom Aspinall fight is honestly a pretty interesting fight. It'd be really impressive if Alex Pereira manages to knock out Aspinall before he gets taken down and submitted. And it'll also be interesting if Aspinall can actually submit Pereira, because we really don't know to what extent his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or like how good his BJJ is, really, because he's only fought heavyweights, and heavyweights suck in the ground. I mean, overall, but especially grappling, they all kind of suck. So Alex Pereira has been training a lot with Glover Teixeira, and well, we have seen the results. So as far as Ankalaev goes, in my opinion, he hasn't quite earned a title shot, but I mean, it's the UFC, it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time. And honestly, I've been thinking this for a little while now, but I think Alex Pereira simply is gonna knock him out. I've seen like a little bit more people thinking the same way. But just looking at the Jan Blachowicz fight, the kicks were such a huge issue for Ankalaev, and he is not an elite grappler. His preferred approach has always been striking, and I don't think he can strike with Alex Pereira in the slightest. I mean, Jan Blachowicz outstruck him rather easily just from the kicking range, and Pereira, they're kind of like similar skill in terms of point fighting, but Pereira, I think, has better he has a better delivery system for his power than Jan Blachowicz does, and I think he knocks him out. So that'll be great to watch. And then I think the move next is move to heavyweight, so that'll be very exciting. But Jiri Prochazka, though, he's in a tough spot because he has lost twice to a champion, and he came out and said he either has to evolve his style or retire. And boy, that reminds me kind of like Tony Ferguson, a very unorthodox guy whose style was kind of like starting to get figured out. And then the difference, of course, is Jerry's actually considered retirement because, maybe he's just a little less artistic. But I'd say he's in a tough spot. I think a good fight for him right now would be Jamal Hill. I think it was already supposed to happen once. They have a little bit of history. That would be exciting. It's a good match. It'd be exciting. I got Jiri Prochazka in that fight, honestly. I do. I do think that Hill is durable and he can tag Jiri bad, but as long as he has a similar chin as he used to before Alex Pereira sent him to the Shadow Realm, I think Jiri should be able to catch him off guard, like, off timing, with like the standard angles he likes to use. So I think it's a good fight for both of them, especially both of them coming off an injury and so on. And Khalil Roundtree would also be interesting to see. Jan Blachowicz. Honestly, there's a lot of really good fights for Jiri. But he's also been thinking about middleweight, and I'm not sure if I would recommend him to move to middleweight just yet. I think he should wait to see how the division moves and then make a decision. But as far as how his style has to evolve for him to be back, man, it's tough, because I just think he really has to go. First, the grappling. He needs to focus on grappling, but he just needs to train abroad, in my opinion, to really get a bit more of the technical skills. Because what you see with guys like him and Tony Ferguson is that they're very talented, they know the basics, and then once they know the basics and they can then they can start to experiment with their own autistic shit, eccentric as they are, and they just make it work because they're very athletic. But eventually that stops working, and I think that could happen soon, especially with the type of power light heavyweights have, because the more Jiri gets tagged, the faster the decline is gonna come. So he definitely needs to go back to the basics, to the fundamentals of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and striking a little bit. So I hope he takes that part seriously. I really like Jiri. So I also wanted to talk about something that the MMA Guru was talking about. I didn't catch his full comments, but he was basically saying that Alex Pereira is kind of fraud-checking MMA as a sport, and I don't completely agree. And the reason is, yes, he's a kickboxer who became, a champion in 2 divisions. But and I do agree with his point of okay, MMA fighters, most of them are just not really what we consider the elite of athletes, as far as athlete goes. But we are talking about pretty weak divisions in middleweight and light heavyweight. 1, 2, they don't have many grapplers whatsoever. I mean, in middleweight, the best grappler might be Hamza Chimaev, who barely fights and who came in after Pereira, and Marvin Vettori, maybe Jack Hermanson. I mean, they're just not the best fighters themselves. I mean, they're pretty shallow divisions, is what I'm trying to say. And let's not forget that Alex Pereira did not fight a single grappler before he got a title shot, and him getting the title in middleweight allowed him to speedrun light heavyweight. So it's not like he had to climb up the ladder on both divisions or on even one division. So did he really, just think about this. Do you all think that Marvin Vettori wouldn't have won a 3-rounder against Pereira with the chin, the cinder block chin that he has? Especially back then, where he was not as good as on the ground as he is now. I definitely think he would have been fraud checked immediately. And as a matter of fact, he was. He's not undefeated in MMA. And I believe he was already submitted and he lost a decision. And, he has already been fraud checked, but he has been training a long time with Glover Teixeira, who's one of the best grapplers in those weight classes, who has insane ground and pound, who has great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he is so good at the ground that he managed to get the belt at 42. So I don't think he's fraud checking MMA. I think he has just simply learned his lessons, because he's been in MMA for years now, and he's just becoming good. He's defending takedowns better. He's being defensively responsible when he's on bottom. And, he already has elite striking, which just keeps getting better somehow at 37 years old. So I just think Alex Pereira is once-in-a-lifetime talent, not necessarily that he's fraud-checking this sport. I do believe though that some heavyweight boxers could completely humiliate heavyweight MMA fighters. Most of them, like 90% of them, with ease. I think. I really believe that so, but that's heavyweight. Most of them they simply suck. Let's just put it that way. And one last thing I wanted to talk about Alex: is he a superstar or is it just Conor? And I'm talking, of course, about the tickets, because Alex Pereira has now been on two of like the top 5 highest selling gates, and one of them is because of Conor. This one, Conor's return, and the other one was UFC 300. So I think he's a huge star, but I think it's being a bit overblown as far as I've seen, because of the Conor pulling out effect, I suppose, which has only happened once, but. I don't know. I feel like he's definitely doing all of the right things to increase his stardom, and I can't wait to watch more of him. But I hope he gets to the level of, closer to Conor. But he's on the right track. Now, let's move on to Diego Lopes versus Dan Ige. I was kind of sad, honestly. When Brian Ortega pulled out, I was kind of upset at him as well, because it's like, okay, you were bulking already to lightweight. You knew you weren't gonna make the weight. Why did you make Diego Lopes drain himself to 145? But it's okay. We got a fight anyway. Dan Ige. I did quite a bit of homework, by the way, for Ortega versus Lopes. So I was very excited about that fight. Very interesting. Two very similar guys. I think it would have probably ended up with Ortega winning a decision, but also Lopes by early knockout. Depends on how good Brian Ortega's chin is, honestly. I think it entirely depends on that. But either way, Dan Ige, he did very well for being on 4 hours notice, but he was already training for another fight, and they just called him. He said, yes, we got a fight. It was not bad, and honestly, Diego Lopes, my respects, he did a lot better than I expected on the ground. I thought, I knew when they announced this fight, I thought Ige was gonna knock him out, like eventually, just timing one of his entries, because I really don't like the way Diego Lopes initiates. Like it's a very obvious approach. Like when he's throwing, he's throwing, and obviously you gotta block, but like usually you gotta block if you're not skilled enough, because he throws with some heat, right? But if you're technical enough and you can time him, like I think some of the elite featherweights will, I think Lopes will be in big trouble. Thankfully, he has a very good chin, because Dan Ige hits hard, and he tagged him a couple times, and he didn't get wobbled at all. A bit hurt, yes, but I wouldn't even say rocked, really. So, but he surprised me in the ground. Dan Ige was a difficult stylistic matchup. He's just hard to finish overall. He has good power, and he's just well-rounded, and Lopes dominated him on the ground. He did whatever he wanted, and with a few more minutes, he probably would have finished him in round 1. So very impressive stuff from Lopes. I think I respect his game a bit more, and it's more and more clear that he's just a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy that packs a lot of power on his frame and on his odd style. I think the main thing for him is he just needs to implement straight shots, jab, 1-2s, mainly jab. I mean, he has a 72-inch reach, for fuck's sake. I mean, that's crazy for featherweight. Bulk has a pretty long reach, and it's 71 inches. Diego Lopes is 5'11", 72 inch reach. I think he should really fight like a tall fighter. Teeps, jabs, whatever, mix it up a bit with his striking. So I'm not sure if with his current gym he'll actually get there, but one can hope. I think he has a lot of room to improve, and he's young, so hopefully we get to see it. I really like this guy, so great on both men to turn up and give us a proper fight. So okay, next up we have Smith and Dolidze. They fought. It was awful. Next up we have Mayra Bueno Silva and Macy Chiason. Now, I thought that was gonna be the second worst fight of the card, second only to obviously Smith and Dolidze, because everyone knew that fight was dog shit. But man, that was probably like one of the most fun fights that we had, and I'm just sad because the one fun fight, I mean, we had to sit through like 3 snoozers, I believe, before it, something like that. Like it was like the only fun fight in like 4 fights, something similar, and it ends with a doctor stoppage. Damn, that's frustrating. Macy Chiason was doing better than most of us expected. Um, Props to her, honestly. And wow, the cut. I think it was the right decision to stop the fight because that cut was gnarly. It was deep. I think the doctor said that he could see the bone, and it's like, okay, make a decision. Like the doctors, it's crazy how both the doctors and the referees absolutely hate accountability. So it's like, okay, someone else make the decision for me, even though it's my job. It happens every time. They're like, they just stare at each other and say, okay, so should I stop the fight? You just tell me to stop the fight. It's like, oh, you do whatever you want. It's very funny, but also very sad because, you know, they're just not doing the job. But in this case, they thankfully they did. I think it was just way too deep. It reminded me to the cut of was it I think his name is Robocop, or like Rodriguez, where he got split right between the eyes, and oh my god, it was bad. I cannot believe that fight, they let that one go on. But I think they should rematch. It was a fun fight, and obviously an underwhelming stoppage, but I think a rightful, in my opinion. So overall, I don't really care about this division. Who cares? No one. So moving on, Ian Garry against MVP. That was sad. That's sad. MVP completely dominated the striking exchanges. I mean, it wasn't even close. Ian he looked spooked as hell when he was on the stand-up. It's like he had no idea what was coming. He had no idea like how to time MVP. Like zero confidence in his own abilities to strike. It was crazy. I didn't expect that from Ian. I thought both of them were gonna point fight. I did wonder if Ian would grapple a little bit, because he's been training with Shoot the Box and Charles Oliveira and all of those guys, Damian Maia. But man, I'll admit, I didn't think he would have much success in that department, but he surprised me. He honestly has improved a lot in the grappling. I mean, is he great? No, but he's better than he used to be, and obviously he was better than MVP, and he ended up winning. Some people are saying robbery. I think the fight should have been scored at most like a draw, because the first round, I don't know how it's not a 10-8. He almost finishes MVP, and he had his back for quite a bit of time. That has to be a 10-8. But of course, watching live, I knew that no judge was gonna score it at 10-8. But whatever, boxing judges, I guess. But man, MVP really hurt him on round 2. He was tagging him like anytime he wanted, but man, he just didn't do enough. What can I say? I knew MVP would be better in striking. I thought he would. It was just gonna be a point fighting snooze fest where MVP just lands the better shots. But Ian grappled, and now we have to tolerate his presence and his shit talk once again. Yay! But anyway, let's end today's podcast just talking about Conor's pay-per-views, because I want to touch on this a little bit. I just find it very funny how, because the UFC knows they're gonna make bank with Conor McGregor's name alone, they just do a shit job with the pay-per-views. And because Conor's fight fell through, God knows what he was doing, they had to scramble for 2 fights, like super last minute, like 2 weeks notice, like both Alex Pereira and Diego Lopes and Dan Ige, just to like, okay, crisis mode, what do we do now? It's a dog shit pay-per-view. Oh my god, I found that very funny, especially, there's a rumor that Jamal Hill actually canceled his fight just because the only reason he wanted to fight then was because he wanted to be on Conor's pay-per-view. I think there might be some merit to that, honestly. I don't know, but I don't want to accuse anyone of being a fucking pussy, but he might be. and here I am talking from my living room. So, regardless, I think that's just an issue with UFC's matchmaking and what the viewing experience really is nowadays for like a lot of fight nights and main events. Just very lazy matchmaking. But at the end of the day, we just have to give respect to the people who turned up. Alex, Jiri, Diego Lopes, Dan Ige, and I guess Brian Ortega, because to be fair, he tried to make weight. He accepted the fight on short notice. Hope he heals up. Maybe we rebook the fight with Diego, but man, respect to them. They are so game. They honestly, it turned out to be a better pay-per-view on paper at least than the one with Conor. And me personally, I could not care less about the Conor Chandler fight, but I guess we'll see it maybe at the Sphere. That's my guess. So, but thankfully, I really doubt. Actually, maybe not the Sphere, because they know the Sphere will sell itself. But if they do, I think they will not make the same mistake, and I think they will just stack it, hopefully with a lot of Mexicans, because what's the point of Riyadh season UFC Noche Mexican Independence Day with almost no Mexicans fighting, right? So anyway, those are my thoughts on UFC 303. Very exciting stuff. Some of it, some snoozers, but that's what happens with modern day UFC, I suppose. I hope it gets better. But anyway, we'll probably talk about that more with Taco. If you liked today's podcast, remember to like and subscribe. It would help a lot. And see you on the next one. Peace.